Welcome to the Parcharis channel. Today we explain Exodus chapter 19 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We've been following the Israelites out of Egypt, right? We've trekked through the desert with them, and now they are finally arriving at the ultimate destination. This is the exact spot where their identity is going to be forged forever. It's a massive moment. Let's see exactly how this pivotal narrative unfolds.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with their arrival at Sinai, look at God's amazing offer to make them a kingdom of priests, and then check out how the people had to prepare. After that, we'll dive into the wild scene of the mountain covered in smoke, break down the key simple ideas, and wrap it all up with some practical life lessons and a quick recap. Let's jump right in.
Section 1, Arrival at Sinai. We're looking at verses 1 and 2 here.
Let's get a feel for the physical setting, because the text gets incredibly specific right from the start. It is exactly the third month after the Israelites left Egypt. The text actually goes out of its way to emphasize that it's on the very day. So they've journeyed from Rephidim, they've entered the desert of Sinai, and they literally set up camp directly in front of the mountain. Think about that for a second. The wandering, it's paused. They have finally reached their focal point.
Moving on to Section 2, a kingdom of priests. This covers verses 3 through 8.
So the camp is set, and Moses doesn't waste a second. He immediately goes up the mountain to God. And what follows is just this profoundly beautiful proposition. You see, before laying down a single rule, God reminds the people of the history they literally just lived through. He says, "You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." I absolutely love that. He isn't introducing himself as some distant, cold dictator. Instead, he's the rescuer, scooping them up and flying them to safety. Building right on that foundation, verses 5 and 6 deliver the actual offer. God tells them that if they obey him fully, they'll be his treasured possession. Now, the Hebrew word used here is segula, which basically means a uniquely prized, highly personal treasure. Out of all the nations on the entire earth, they're being invited to become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. They are being completely set apart for this incredibly direct, unique relationship with the Creator.
So Moses takes this massive, weighty offer back down to the elders. And the people, they don't even blink. Verse 8 tells us they answered together in complete, unified agreement. They just say, "We will do everything the Lord has said." Just like that, without hesitation, the contract is verbally agreed upon.
Okay, Section 3, preparing the people. We're looking at verses 9 through 15.
With the covenant officially accepted, God announces that he's going to come to them in a dense cloud. But listen, this requires some immediate, serious preparation. God tells Moses to go and consecrate them today and tomorrow. The Hebrew root word here is kadesh, which means to set apart or make holy. The idea is that you absolutely cannot just casually stroll into the presence of the divine. It requires a massive, intentional shift, both physically and spiritually. Moses goes ahead and outlines the practical steps for this transformation. They actually have to wash their clothes, which is this highly physical act that represents an inner cleansing. They also have to abstain from marital relations to maintain absolute singular focus. They're given exactly 3 days to get completely ready. And crucially, they have to respect these incredibly strict physical limits that are set up all around the mountain. I really want to emphasize just how serious those limits are in verses 12 and 13. I mean, the text is blunt. Touching the mountain literally means death. Whoever touches it, whether it's a man or an animal, they are going to be stoned or shot with arrows. Nobody is allowed to even lay a single finger on that mountain until they hear the long blast of the ram's horn. It is the ultimate boundary of respect.
This brings us to Section 4, the mountain in smoke, covering verses 16 to 25.
The preparations are finally done. It's the morning of the third day, and the scene is, well, it's honestly terrifying. There's thunder and lightning. A thick, dark cloud descends. Then there's this very loud trumpet blast, a shofar or ram's horn, and it's so intense that everyone in the camp is physically trembling. The mountain itself is completely covered in smoke, billowing like a furnace, because the Lord descends in fire. And on top of all that, the earth itself is violently shaking in an earthquake. It's total sensory overload. But here is the absolutely crucial point. Amidst all this deafening, terrifying chaos, communication actually happens. The text tells us simply that Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him audibly. Just picture that for a moment. The creator of the universe is responding to a human being, out loud, right there in the hearing of the entire nation.
Then, something totally surprising happens in verse 20. The Lord descends to the very top of Sinai, and he calls Moses up. Moses goes up, but almost immediately God commands him to turn right back around and go down, which naturally raises the question, why on earth does God immediately send Moses back down with a final warning?
Well, it's because God knows human nature perfectly. He knows that the second you put up a do not enter sign, human curiosity is going to kick in and people are going to try to peek behind it. He explicitly warns Moses that the people, and yes, even the priests, must absolutely not force their way through to look or they'll perish. Moses actually pushes back a bit like, but Lord, we already put the limits up. But God insists. When it comes to holiness, safety is absolutely paramount.
All right, Section 5, Keys, Simple Ideas. Let's make sure we're understanding the plain text of everything we just covered.
Now that we've walked through the narrative step by step, let's distill it down to the bedrock facts. First, God initiates this covenant from a place of rescue and love. He saves them first and gives the rules second. Second, the covenant is completely voluntary. The people actively have to agree to the terms. And third, true holiness is overwhelmingly powerful, and because of that, it requires unyielding boundaries to protect people. Which leads us to Section 6, Practical Life Lessons. What do we actually learn from all this? How do these literal, historical events apply to you and me today? Well, first off, deep spiritual experiences require diligent preparation. You simply can't rush into profound moments without getting your mind and your actions ready first. Second, respecting boundaries keeps us grounded. Limits are there to protect us from forces way greater than ourselves. And finally, there is just unbelievable strength in a unified community. When people come together and say, we will do this together, that has incredible, life-changing power.
Finally, Section 7, short recap. Let's look at the chapter at a glance.
Just to cement this whole thing in our memory, we journeyed from their exact arrival at the mountain in the Sinai desert. We saw the beautiful mutual agreement where the covenant is offered and accepted. We witnessed those 3 intense days of physical and spiritual consecration. And finally, we stood at the boundary line as God descended in awe-inspiring fire and smoke.
And you know, the chapter ends on quite the cliffhanger. It finishes right as Moses is returning down the mountain, carrying God's final warning, preparing to bring his brother Aaron up with him. This exact moment sets the absolutely perfect stage for what's coming next, the giving of the 10 Commandments.
As you think about this chapter, ask yourself, are you taking the time to prepare yourself before stepping into the most important moments of your own life? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.